What's up, Leafs fans? Welcome back to Leafs Digest. Last night against the Anaheim Ducks, we got to see the debut of the new Leafs lineup, the new look lines up front on forward for us, and it was an interesting experiment. I think it was something that once the lines were announced, what they were seeing at practice, it was something that got people stirring, especially in the media, wondering what was going on, why there was so much experimentation and people moving up and down, different guys getting promoted or demoted depending on how you want to look at it, or just a simple reshuffling of the lines. But essentially the lines moved to Bunting, Matthews, Kasha, Mikheyev, Tavares, Marner, Kerfoot, Kampf, Nylander, Engvall, Spezza, Simmons. So you're looking at a situation where you got Kasha slotting himself into that first line. Marner moves down back to where he was playing, I guess, a couple of years ago with Tavares when they both had really, really good seasons. And then Nylander, I don't know if we want to call it a demotion or not, but he's moved down to the third line playing with Kerfoot and Kampf. And then that fourth line, it kind of stays intact as it already was, Engvall, Spezza, Simmons. Do you feel like this is, actually, you know what? First thing I'm going to ask you is, what did you think about the line moves before we kind of dive too deep into like the experimentation and the chemistry and stuff of them? What did you think of the lines?
They are the most balanced I've seen so far from the Leafs this year, but I do worry about giving William Nylander third line minutes. I'd rather see him get a little bit more ice time than what that'll bring. Also, I feel like he kind of thrive in a more skilled situation with his line mates. Don't get me wrong, like, Kampf isn't, really there, but I think just generally having him getting third line minutes to me is a concerning thing. But I do think this is the most balanced our depth has ever looked on the Leafs. So, I like that aspect of it, but I definitely do have some questions about getting William Nylander some more ice time. And the one interesting thing about the Ducks experiment here, yes, you win the game, and a really weird one, but you only scored power play goals. So we didn't even get like a full feel for what the actual lines will be like chemistry wise. If anything, it kind of turned us away from the fact that none of them scored. We had to rely on power play, which is still great. It came through, but I still can't get quite a read on the chemistry of the lines. Like, what did you think during the Ducks game?
Yeah, overall, like, we kind of took it to them 5-on-5, especially you look at the shots after. We outshot them 44 to 20, I believe it was. Campbell didn't have himself the greatest night. There was an own goal scored. There was a weird tip in front. That was a high tip. Not much he could have done on there. But as far as the offensive production, yeah, you're right. The goals weren't there, but there was chances. There was shots created, and there was scoring threats that went on during the game. For me, I think one of the big things here, and I may be just getting way too far ahead of myself, but the Bunting Matthews Kasha line opens a lot of things up. And the reason I say that is because Austin Matthews is the type of guy who is going to score 40 goals and put up a ridiculous number of points in the regular season, essentially no matter who's on his wing. We've seen him do it with William Nylander. We've seen him do it with Marner and we've seen him do it with Zach Hyman, and now we're seeing him with him and Bunting having incredible chemistry. And now this is the part where I don't know if I'm just stretching way too much, and this is way too much of a reach, but throwing Kasha on that line starts to remind me of when when the Penguins used to put Dupuis and Kunitz on his lines. And the reason I say that is because Sidney Crosby doesn't need a superstar beside him to excel. Austin Matthews, especially over the last stretch, I would say 15 to 20 games, has really, really proved he's elevated his game to be a guy who doesn't need other people. We saw it when Marner went out of the lineup. He just stepped right up and continued on scoring the way that he was, and it was insane. You saw him with Bunting and Kasha continuing to produce. Sidney Crosby was that. He didn't need the other guys beside him. But then the added bonus of this is beyond, he doesn't need guys beside him. And it's more than even just balancing the rest of the lines. And I'm interested to hear your opinion on this. But you move those guys up to that first line. Does that not feel like more of a playoff line?
Yeah, I like where you're going with this. Even the comparison there to the Pittsburgh line. That's an ambitious comparison. I'm not sure everyone will see it, but I definitely get what you're saying here because, Kunitz and Dupuis, grinder guys, but still really skilled. Bunting, he hasn't played that much in the NHL, but from what we can tell, he actually fits that mold pretty well. The perfect Zach Hyman replacement. And then Kasha, he's been a first line player before, had 20 goals with the Ducks alongside Getzlaf, playing playoff hockey. Like, Kasha is a player that I have a lot of faith in right now for sure. So I like the look at that line going into the playoffs because they will go in the corners, fight. It's a scrappy line. When I say fight, I mean, battle for the puck. No one's really dropping the gloves on that line, not by choice. I would like to see Matthews do it at some point in his career, but that's a totally different topic. I do like the idea of that group going into the playoffs. I mean, they just be tough. If you take the puck off them, they're getting it right back. Even if
Yeah.
they don't get you on a shift, they're going to be pretty responsible defensively. I could see that being a lockdown first line, honestly.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
thing. I think it adds balance to their even ability to produce offense. That's a line that you can throw out there and not go, oh man, are we going to give something up here? Like you're thinking, hey, there's a good chance we'll score, but maybe we're going to give something up. You throw those two guys along his side, you can trust them in a lot of situations. Bunting draws a lot of penalties, so giving him a lot more minutes and letting that power play have a chance to go to work, I like as well. Especially if he's playing alongside Matthews, he's going to get the minutes. There was a point last night where it's just a subtle thing, and I don't know if you picked up on it, but it was one of the face-offs. There was a point where Bunting kind of looked to the bench as if he was wondering if they were going to get a change, and Matthews kind of skated up behind him and like turned him to be like, like we ain't changing here. And I
I didn't
think,
see that.
yeah, I think it kind of goes to 2 points of one, Matthews likes playing with Bunting, so he's like, hey, like you're staying out here with me, first of all, and second of all, like we're taking these minutes, we're playing. And pulling a guy back out there to just say, hey, like we're staying on the ice here, we're going to keep going, I think is good. But then I just think it just balances it a little more. You think about where we've been in the past. The only guy you could really say, hey, that's the playoff grinder guy is Hyman on the line. And we've had so many problems with what Marner has been able to do in the playoffs. You eliminate that factor if you balance lines like this, because even looking down to the third line where you've got the Nylander and the Kerfoot combo, they've got an insanely defensive-minded centerman between them who wins a lot of draws and is going to give them puck possession to start shifts. Because if Kampf goes out there with guys who don't score as much, he's winning draws, but it's not as offensively productive. Now you throw Nylander and Kerfoot out there, that line's got a chance to score now too.
The only thing that worries me a little bit about that third line is like William Nylander is going to need to hold the puck a whole lot because Kerfoot's undersized, right? So like he gets it taken off him a fair bit. He's smart with it, but like you can't have him hold onto the puck like a lot of different players like Austin, Willie, even Marner to a certain extent. I don't think he has that like anywhere close to that kind of puck control, even though he is pretty skilled. And then you also look at Camp, who's like just pure defense, right? I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on Willie to be like the guy who carries the puck into the zone, to be the guy who like sets plays up. I don't know. And I feel like he's only getting a little bit of dosage there. I do agree. This is the most balanced the lines have looked by far. And I really like the idea of you kind of alluding to it there. Once we get that first, like I kind of see that first line as a checking line, even though obviously they're our best guys. Like, I want to say our best guys. You get what I mean? We're
Yeah.
putting some of our best talent forward on the first line. They'll be scoring a lot of goals, but I see them as like a really hard checking line, like you kind of brought out there, and that softens up the other team a little bit for the like the 1-2 punch then of Tavares and Marner, who I think really always have played well together. I like the idea of them going back and then taking advantage of maybe a tired other first line or getting matched up with a second line that isn't quite as good.
Yeah.
Most balanced the lines have looked. William Nylander's is my only concern.
Yeah, and like I see what you're saying. My kind of counterpoint to it would be what they did in the playoffs last year, because I think I had the same concerns about Kerfoot, but what he elevated his game to in the playoffs last year made me really take a step back and go, okay, maybe he's okay. Maybe he's going to be fine here doing this, and maybe he can actually continue that. And he's played well this season. And then Nylander, I mean, obviously power play goal, as you alluded to, but last night he scores 17th goal of the season, which ties his amount of goals that he scored last year, and he did it in significantly less games played so far this season, so he's on pace to put up some pretty significant numbers this year. I think though, when you get that, it's just now you have three lines that are genuinely capable of scoring on you, and when the other team
Well,
matches up, they're gonna have to be aware of that, because it's no longer just the top two. You're balanced throughout.
Well, to be fair though, Willie did score on the power play, right? Like
Yes,
he didn't
yes.
score with the third line. And like, who knows where it'll go. I think it could work out too. Like Kerfoot is skilled. Maybe this is just me like reading into the fact that he is undersized and worrying that it's going to result in him losing the puck more. But in reality, maybe he is still up there for one of the top guys on our team in terms of puck control. I just worry about it when you have like Kampf out there as well, because I love Kampf, but there's just not a whole lot of like control in the offensive zone when he's out there. Like he's pretty fundamental and sound, but like that line's going to want to score eventually. So I feel like William Nylander might have too much of a tilted responsibility, not enough minutes. But I'm down for the experiment because I do like the way the lines look otherwise, and I'm happy they've left that fourth line pretty well untouched. A lot of guys that I think are playing great down there.
Yeah.
So overall, I think I got to say that I'm viewing these line changes as positive. I'll view the fact that we won last game positive, even though it didn't really reflect the lines and wasn't the perfect win. But you know what? I think there's some bright things in this in the future for this Leafs team. And the way you hyped up the first line, Philly, you got me seeing a playoff sort of. I don't know if I would describe it as like a playoff weapon, but just like you were saying, more playoff sound hockey will be played when your lines look like that and have that kind of balance.
Yeah, I think that first line is actually poised for a good, solid, dominant playoffs. I'm kind of a little bit biased. I talked about it last night in the post game where I just said like, hey, I got to admit where I was wrong, and Mitch Marner has played incredible on special teams since he's come back. So I'm kudos to him. I'm still not sold on Marner and kind of what he can do right now, just based on everything. Previously and in the playoffs and stuff, I'm hesitant, so I don't know if I'm ready to see him go back to that line. Now, here's the final question, and this is kind of what the whole video is essentially about here is, are you at all worried about chemistry going into the playoffs? And I don't know if you want me to give my answer first. It's something we've talked about a little bit here, but chemistry, moving all the lines this much, does it concern you?
I wouldn't say it concerns me too much because he's been throwing things into the blender all year. Like
Yeah,
he's
I'm on the
almost
same
just
page.
he's just built up to this moment. It's kind of nothing new, but um, I think that what happened in the first round, I don't want to blame it all on Johnny T. Like we crumbled, but I think that guys definitely felt out of place when he missed a really big piece, and especially a leader too, had to shift things around quickly on the fly. I
Yeah,
think that we've just prepared for the worst and blended things all year, and maybe this is a glimpse of what might be more long term. But at least we have, the time built up being in the blender before this to feel like what it's like to be on different lines in different situations. So I'm not concerned. I think that we've built a capacity to deal with these things now, which is a positive here. Probably the only positive of them constantly changing the lines because we couldn't figure it out for a while. But
yeah.
Philly, what do you think about this?
I'm on the same page. He's been going and turning that blender on all year long, and it's just been a constant shuffle of things happening. It hasn't been as much pre-game shuffling. There has been throughout, and then obviously dealing with COVID and injuries and stuff, things move around, and you have to figure some of those things out. But then going into games, he's been confident in switching the lines up on the fly. Now, for him to go into this and just spread it out right before the puck drop even happens, I'm kind of comfortable knowing that this Leafs coaching staff and management is going, all right, let's see what these guys have, and we'll just roll with this. And I mean, last night there was times where the line shuffled after power plays. One thing too to note here about this is that after a power play goes out there, guess what happens to the lines after? Three separate lines get disrupted because of the power play. You're taking Matthews from line one, Marner and Tavares from line two, and Nylander from line three, and throwing them all in the same unit for the power play. So
Yeah,
things get moved around
that's a
automatically.
very good point. That's actually a very good point. So, man, we got to take a couple games before we can truly gauge what these lines are going to be like because
But
that
I
threw a wrench into sort of the whole playing time of it all.
Yeah, but I think that what the benefit of that comes from is that you've moved the lines around so much. Everybody's played with everybody. So now
Yeah,
the power play ends and you just roll out there with a 5-on-5 unit with a line of three guys who played together for 40 games this year. And I mean, we're obviously not at the 40 game, even at the 40 game marks yet, but just from the standpoint of like, you come playoff time, you throw a power play unit out there and you're going, oh my god, we just disrupted lines 1, 2, and 3. It's not the biggest deal because the next line you put out there, they've had chemistry, they've played together. And the one thing that this team has showed this year is that it's more about team chemistry than it is about line chemistry. They've been able to move up and down lines, change who they're playing with. Even the D has moved around a little bit. I mean, Brody and Riley has pretty much been like locked in the entire time. But from forward perspective, it's moved. It's moved around, and it hasn't really posed any problems, especially not for scoring goals. Yeah, we've had some problems winning games or defensively maybe and blowing some of those leads, but from scoring goals, which I mean is probably kind of where you're looking at the halfway point of the season, going, all right, everybody can play with everybody, and we can score goals here. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, I am too. I got to take a lot of comfort in it. And me and you, we were talking about, we couldn't figure it out for the longest time. Like, why are we just repeatedly like changing everything up? But when you look at the greater picture here, and you were the first guy to say it, that this is going to prepare us better for inevitable things that happen in sports. And, we saw it happen to us last year in the first round, and we want to patch that up. So I'm feeling really good about this, man. And you really hyped me up about the first line. I always kind of like, I always agreed. I like the line, but the way we're talking about what they'll be looking like in playoff hockey, if this is even the group that gets there together, it'd be pretty exciting. But big trial period coming up here. Last game was not a great representation of what these lines are going to be like. We'll definitely need more time to figure it out. But I like it right now, Philly. I really do.
All right, Leafs fans, let us know in the comments below what you think about these lines. If you'd want to see different guys playing on different lines, if you think yourselves this is ruining any type of chemistry, what concerns do you have about the lines that are going on right now? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you like this video, and then most importantly, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so every subscriber along the way we greatly appreciate. Leafs fans, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Any news, updates, rumors, any of that stuff, we will be breaking it down here as soon as we possibly can. As soon as we hear it, it'll be all up on this channel, so hit that subscribe button. Leafs fans, good things coming. I'm happy about the lines. I think Josh is on the same page. Maybe we're looking at a little Crosby, Kunitz, Dupuis situation of our own here. So we'll see how things pan out over the next couple of games, but I'm happy about it. Keep believing.
Signing off.